Good day, lovely human beings. Welcome back to our live Q&A. Again, I have my lovely daughter, Kristal, joining us.
Hello, everyone.
Yay. And before we get too far in here, I want to remind you that Kristal is taking bookings. If you schedule a session with her between now and the end of June, so you just need to make the purchase before the end of June. You can schedule it anytime in the upcoming weeks and months. You can receive a 25% off discount, which makes her rates super, super affordable using that coupon code below, Kristal25. So I really invite you to take advantage of this sale and get to know Kristal. She's doing so many readings and supporting people in all the myriad of different ways, including her coaching. She has training as a conscious evolver coach, which is a really fascinating topic. Maybe someday soon we'll get her on here just talking about what that is and how she came to learning these techniques. But it really is transformative. And if any of you have had a session with Kristal already and done a coaching session, maybe leave a comment about that. That would be super appreciated. So welcome, Dawn, Sparkle, Angela, Ricky. So awesome to see you.
Hello, Cass.
Yeah. So we've already got a question to start the day. And as I said before, if you would like to put a question in the comments, please put it in capital letters. And that way it's easy as I'm scrolling up and down with my not so great eyesight to pick your question out. And this particular question,
Can I say something before you just get going?
Yeah, sure.
Am I allowed to talk to you?
Oh, yes, of course.
I want to say that it has been such an honor and a pleasure to meet all of you beautiful beings and to be chosen to be the one that is offering support and guidance and care and channeling for you. And I look forward to meeting so many more of you. It's just been like such a true pleasure. And yes, Dawn, I'm looking forward to tomorrow too.
Yay.
So nice to see you all. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Mama.
Yes, you're welcome, dear. So let's start. Oh, and of course I have to say that please like, share, and subscribe. Do it. I'm so forgetful about these things. Okay, so let's show Cass's question. Here it is. Federal government owns the majority of the lands in Canada. So I'm assuming this is similar for a lot of countries, especially the Commonwealth countries. What's referred to as Crown land. Boy, that feels like a real legal kettle of fish in terms of going back through all the origins of how these different corporations were set up, the country corporations and all that kind of nonsense, basically. So will these lands be returned to the people? If so, will they be returned to the Indigenous people or to all Canadians? This is a fantastic question. I know that I'm working with some of my allies in Australia that are working on Australian Aboriginal sovereignty and the return of their lands. And what they're doing there, they have this philosophy called Wurgen, which really basically means Indigenous people and European settlers working together. And so they are basically including all the residents of the lands in that new, I want to say, kind of confederation or constitution of what those lands are, how they're called, and who is the stewards of them. Because to me, really, it's a lot about taking away this concept of ownership and getting into stewardship as well. So it's kind of, it's a little bit more than who owns what. It's more about how do we have a relationship with land, and if we're going to go and change these corporate constitutional documents, so to speak, or policies, maybe let's go all the way into changing our relationship with land. That's just my first take on this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So let's have a look here.
I'm going to get you to shuffle too, Mama.
Okay, sounds great. Yeah, let's have a look and see what information comes. I'm really curious about this question, so thank you for asking it, and also about timing with something like this, because I feel like I've been sensing with working with some of my friends who are in both Europeans and Indigenous people in Australia, and their prophecy is that they're going to lead the world on changing the way we look at land and ownership. And they're really making leaps and bounds with this right now. So let's have a look and see if that's going to affect what goes on in Canada as well. So here we are. We'll lay out all the cards and then we'll let you look at them and analyze them. Ooh, boy, that's a good one, eh? Yeah, let's move it up a bit. So, okay. Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
Wow.
Okay.
All right. What do you start off, Kristal? What are you seeing? And maybe tell us what the cards are and what the positions are too.
I definitely see if we have the question that we're asking and us in the question here and the advice outcome on it, and then our past, present, potential, future, and then some clarifier cards here. I definitely see what you're saying here about, our true relationship to land and what it is that we're really seeing, what we constitute as value around land, and the pace of it, that slow and steady redistributing of the legacy of the land to the true people it's meant to go to.
Yeah, Queen of Pentacles, like all these pentacles, it's a lot. I mean, it is about land and money and resources, but it's also, as Kristal said, it's about things happening with pentacles. It takes a longer time, but it is kind of like, I want to say it's sort of like the bottom line. Like we can change policies around, religion and personal freedoms and social justice and all that kind of societal change. But when we get down to who owns what and what do we do with land? What do we do with resources? How do we work with the things that we need to live in physical form? And so the physical always takes the longest, as Kristal was saying. And yet
there's a real wisdom to the time taken, though, with this. Like, it's a lot of the work that we're doing in ourselves and really coming into like the true essence of what the importance of this land means to us. And there's a like a death of the old way that we care for ourselves and the land and the way that we connect to it, and then the way that it is distributed. So we're really being called, I mean, this is such an internal card. So it's like, I feel that it is still a waiting game till there's like a lot of clear answers on it. And it's perfect. The time is necessary because we're rewriting, what we really want it to look like and how we're really going to utilize the land.
Yeah.
And then we're going to get it out there. It's like a whole new message that gets sent out. It's an entirely different way of approaching all of it.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. Two queens. We've got two queens. We've got the Queen of Pentacles in the recent past and Queen of Wands in the potential future. So it's going to be, we're going to be going about things in a more feminine way. It isn't about like, we don't see all this laws and authority and power and domination kind of more like a masculine controlling principle. We see it's going to be a lot about, I feel like it's going to be a lot about reclaiming value that land isn't just something that gets to be exploited and bought and sold as a commodity, that it's something that actually, you know, every land in every part of the world, including, of course, Canada with our vast forests, it's like everything has value that isn't just exploited, like exploitable value. It has, like, for example, in Canada with all our forestry and the terrible management of our forestry industry, it's like it could be this place, and we've talked about this over the years, it could be this extraordinary leader, world leader in terms of utilizing forestry products in a whole new way, like having really beautiful, healthy forests that are like a biosphere that's oxygenating the planet, the lungs of the planet. You know, our boreal forest is like the lungs of the planet. And also we can be using our wood products and manufacturing with them and making beautiful furniture and high quality items, and just not going in and clear cutting to sell lumber internationally for profit. Like it's like Kristal said, it's about our relationship and the way we relate to the value of land, and that each land has something spectacular in a way. Even some of the most barren landscapes have a purpose, and there's something that they are, you know, if we kind of exalt that natural purpose, we can have regions of the planet that are restored. So Canada, Australia, some of these countries that still have a relatively large land mass that's untouched.
So much resource.
And also an opportunity for us to get really creative. She's the creative queen. So she's
putting it out there in a whole new way. Totally. And through conversations like this, right? Like people that are relating to these questions in a whole new way and relating to the land. And then it's going, even with the chariot here, finish saying what you're saying, Mama.
Just that she's creative and that we're going to come up with creative solutions. Yeah. What do you make of the chariot there, Kristal?
Well, I just think that it's interesting what you were saying about Australia, and that this is not just about what's happening with Canadian land. We're really going to be like crossing the globe in terms of our ideas and sharing this wisdom with each other, and the old ways coming to an end, and we're really going internal to examine step by step how we're going to be putting this into action and then sharing that with the world. And we're inspiring each other, leading by example in it.
Fascinating. Thank you, Kristal. It is fascinating. You'll see this death card, which means, you know, it may need to get worse before it gets better. We're going to come down to some pretty heavy, I want to say, kind of front line, like these kind of conversations, these kind of discussions are going to be brought up to the front burner. And it's often the Indigenous people that bring that. Now, interesting that their angle is very, I want to say, religious and spiritual. And I'm being drawn to, do you see that character here, the Pope, that is standing in front of the Reaper, basically trying to do a deal, trying to bargain a deal. This is reminding me of how much land was confiscated by the church in Europe, for example. And religion has been used as a tool for, you know, land grabs throughout history a lot. And so it's interesting in a way. I almost feel like working with Indigenous people, we're turning the table and saying, okay, they have a religious claim to their territories. It's actually spiritual. It isn't something that can be identified in the, you know, like even in basic human rights, constitutional rights or whatever. It actually goes into the realm of spirituality and religious rights. And of course, you know, like the Catholic Church especially claimed religious authority over land for centuries. So in a way, we can use that as a precedent and say these people have a claim to these lands for religious reasons. So I guess in a way, Cass, I'm answering you by saying, I wonder if, you know, us European settlers, for example, in North America and in Australia, we don't stand a chance of saying we have religious rights on these lands, but the Indigenous people do. And this is something that when they talk about having land rights, they often talk about this is our spiritual home. You know, this is the land where our ancestors are buried, and they claim that. And I think we're going to see that as a vehicle for opening the doors to negotiation.
Yeah.
And I think we're so fortunate when our Indigenous brothers and sisters welcome those of us that are willing to work with them and support them on this quest. You know, even if some of our ancestors were perpetrators and part of the issue, I always like to point out, when you go really far back into global history, we've all been displaced. It's just a rolling past the buck. You know, this most recent last, 300 to 500 years in North America, maybe 600 years in some cases, this is the most recent past the buck of displacement and exploitation and, taking away people's culture, their traditions, their lands, their autonomy, all of that kind of stuff, disenfranchising them from their natural territories. This has happened to all of our European ancestors as well, way before. So this is, again, it's been rolling and rolling and rolling along for literally thousands of years. And, we're going to start turning the tables on that and going back the other way, but actually I'm seeing going forward in a new way.
And there's a real ancient wisdom in the way that this has all unraveled and the way that everything has gone down. And like, there's the knowing and the understanding that we designed it all like this. And so we can trust the process and really dive into honoring the wisdom behind all of it and how we're moving forward in the new way, as Mom said now. Hi, Lauren and Bibi. And I think, Dawn, as you say, hopefully they will share with those of us that are respectful. And what Mom has shared with me about her work with the Australians is that is the point of what they're doing right now, is they're building those, reconnecting in really respectful, more heart-centered ways, and healing those bridges between the settlers and the Indigenous people, and then stepping into what they're doing with that. So I hope so too.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Lorna Beebe says the land belongs to no one. In particular, it belongs to everyone. Yes. Unity is the solution. And yeah, we still have a lot of healing and what we call here in Canada reconciliation. And that to me is done really almost most beautifully on a personal and local level. And when we're ready to move towards facing things like federal courts and federal constitutional judges and things like that, I do see us unified and on the same page. And, like if Indigenous people, if Native North American people are claiming that they have religious authority over territories, and we're supporting them in that, I feel it is more likely that they're going to include us in the co-creation of a whole new document, a whole new approach to stewarding land, because according to their traditions, that is how their ancestors treated their relationship with land. So we have a lot to learn from that. And I think that we also have a lot to share and support each other in. And so the question around, okay, the land grabs are happening. We know about whatever the Gates Foundation buying up all this farmland. We know about the fact that these things are definitely happening. And I feel like it's going to get critical. It's going to get critical. And a lot of people are going to be rising up. So maybe 8 to 10 years down the road before this really gets to be a front burner item. But when it does, I think we'll be ready for that.
Yeah, and that leads us into this question about, will we see free utilities? Do you want to put it up there, Mama?
Oh, yeah,
Emily's
and-
question here.
Yeah, Emily's
and then
Sparkles.
Yeah, no, Dawn had a question about silver as well. So
Yeah, we're going to do that one too.
Yeah.
So here we go. We'll start with Emily. Will we see free utilities for us? Oh, sorry, for the US and Canada next year? Also wondering about raising Social Security in the US. Okay, so let's start with free utilities for US and Canada. And it kind of goes in with, Sparkle has said, once free energy is in place, Mother Earth will be treated
That's what I
differently.
was going to say. Those
Yeah,
seem very relevant.
Mhm.
And I suspect that they'll kind of lead into each other in terms of the answers themselves as well. So
yeah, beautiful.
free utilities. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you, Emily, and thank you, Sparkle. Oh, there's us. Look at us. Look at us. Oh, feeling
Just
concerned.
yeah, overwhelmed by all of it for sure.
Okay. Oh, I get a real clear answer on this.
Go, Mama, go.
I'm gonna see if you're getting the same thing. Okay.
How about it?
Woo-hoo-hoo. Well, please don't take this that I'm laughing about this. I get how traumatizing all of this is.
It really is.
And as I just said about the land, unfortunately, it looks like your question was, is it going to happen next year? And I want to say, I don't think so, my dear, because it has to get worse.
Mhm.
It has to get a bit worse. And what I'm actually seeing is power outages, blackouts, and issues with the management and the, like we are a very complacent, pampered culture here in North America. We have not been used to going without anything really and having disruptions in our services. From our generation, from my generation onwards, we were raised with quite a lot of, we were very entitled in a way to have all these things. And so I think it's just hard to really even grok. It's funny. I remember when I was visiting Italy and we were laughing because we were staying in this beautiful villa in Tuscany. This is like 15 years ago. I didn't have a ton of money, but I had enough to have a special holiday once in a blue moon. And I went to this beautiful villa. Anyway, there was a joke because we were all sitting around the table and the power kept going out and on and off. And they were laughing and saying, oh, that is how the utilities companies are run in Italy. There's two little men that are sitting on the top of the roof and they're going like this. Oh, and then they siesta and they fall asleep and the wires come apart. And we were all laughing about it. And they were just like, yeah, we're used to this. This is, we don't expect these systems. We're, a lot of it, like the buildings are old. They just don't have that same expectation that we have in North America. So I feel like in a way we have to face what it is that we actually, what it is that we need. I think going through an experience, I have chosen over my lifetime to live off grid without power a lot. Maybe not in comparison to some of the hardcore off-grid people that I know, but I've chosen to put myself in a position, and it isn't, it's not masochism. It's actually about like reminding myself to appreciate all the little things that we take for granted. And then I grow into actually having a less dependent relationship on them. So I think we're going to be shifting, going through some challenges where we need to learn to live differently with power, because in a way, this goes right into your question or your comment, Sparkle, about free energy being in place. And Earth will be treated differently, will become healthier as people from it. So the question is, which comes first? The free energy and then we heal? Or do we start healing and then free energy comes in as a reflection of our healing?
I mean, I think it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit of both. I mean, the disruption and the struggle that we're going to be continuing to face here, like 9 years
Well,
in
actually,
total.
I was getting maybe 4 before free energy is introduced, because we've got the
Right,
king right there.
exactly.
He's the number 4, or the emperor, sorry, and then we've got the 4 wands.
So it really, over the next few years especially, it really pushes us to be working together, to be coming together as teams of people and getting really creative and purposeful in developing that free energy over the next few years. And I mean, oftentimes human beings, we need to be pushed. And I definitely see how it's like there's something that we find in the darkness that is like being led by that North Star in a way, where when we dig into our darkness and our challenge, we're really it lights up that North Star in ourselves and really shows us, it leads us to each other. We see it definitely, I think, pushes us to come together and rewrite some of these older patriarchal systems that are in place right now.
Beautiful. And yes, this what I'm being shown is that we will, if think about this for a minute, if we have centralized power dominant government, centralized power dominant utility companies, and then we get free energy, it's kind of going to be the same game, different rules, basically, right? Like there's still somebody that can turn it on or off. Like free energy, from what I understand about free energy devices, is what's beautiful about them is that they're going to be like small and like, we can have them, all of us, on our person even, or in our homes individually, that we don't need to tap into a system. So therefore, there's going to need to be some transition to get away from this whole idea that there is a system. Like, I don't know if you've ever used a generator, but like you need to kind of set yourself up in a new way just to relate to having that kind of technology as opposed to being on the grid. So I feel like this is going to be challenging us to step away from the grid and build other energy alternative projects, like start with what we've got, start with geothermal, micro hydro. Like, I'm not talking about solar. I know that it's really toxic and damaging for the environment and all the reasons why solar is no good and wind isn't much better. But we've got things like geothermal and like micro hydro, which is basically tapping the motion of smaller riverways and streams and so on. The smaller waterways. And those,
it's more grassroots, hands-on. Yeah,
definitely. And so we're going to start looking at setting up some of these smaller localized systems, and that is part of why it needs to it's really about getting away from the system as a whole, this dominant centralized system. And I was loving, a couple of weeks ago, I was listening to Pamela Gregory. She's one of the astrologers that I follow, and she was talking about the age of Aquarius. We know that the age of Aquarius is about, futuristic. It's about humanitarian, working in collaboration as groups and all that sort of stuff. But I didn't realize that one of the aspects of Aquarian energy is decentralization. So I feel like we're getting into that model that having a loss of power is going to force some of us that have been unwilling to kind of step away from being so reliant on the grid to start getting more creative and thinking outside that grid.
Well, I mean, we think about what it's like when the power goes out, and it's just like, it reminds me of this card, because I was going to say, it just like gives us the opportunity to like all come together and celebrate. And I think we even told that story last time about when the power was out and you were at your friend's house or whatever. Not relevant, not necessary to repeat right now, but it really feels to me like, you know, people come together and they like play games and they, you know, sit by the fire and they tell stories and all that kind of stuff. There's something about celebrating what it feels like to have less and less of this dependency on a certain type of power, because it somehow brings us together. So I love that. It's beautiful. And as you say, Sparkle, people will be healthier from it, right? Like, it's like we're going to really honor this new free energy that we have in a greater way than we even know we're capable of right now, I think.
Yeah, and I see here, you know, Lorna is speaking about free energy is not controlled or guided by government. It comes from the ether or the aether. Absolutely. And there's going to be a transition to like introduce that technology. And honestly, what it feels like is it's about us being in a different mindset and a different heart space, and not being so reliant on the systems that we have grown really dependent on, is part of the empowerment that draws that energy towards us, those options. It's almost like you could say in a way that this whole experiment with technology and, you know, creating these nation states that create incredible dependency on centralized power dominant models of authority and of, you know, utilities and things like that. It's been an experiment to show us that while in the short term it's nice to be kind of coddled and treated like a house plant and centralized heating and everything looked after for you, but at some point, you know, we actually realize that we've created more and more of a cage that we're living in.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's not really anything free about that, is there?
Yeah.
It costs us in more ways than one.
Exactly. So I feel like there's something metaphysical about, they're not just going to give us free energy and say, you know, here, have this. It's sort of like, you know, winning the lottery when you haven't healed your money wounds. You're just going to, we're going to not get the lesson is what I'm getting. So it feels like it's important that we get the lesson. And when I say we, some of us may already feel like we pretty got it, but there is something about, we'll know when we've got it, because that's when free energy will be available and not before.
Yes, indeed.
So
indeed. Back up to Dawn's question.
Okay.
Should we look at silver here?
Yeah, let's look at silver. Where was that? There it is, gold and silver. There we go. Works pretty good having one of us looking at that.
Teamwork.
I do need to bring in my blue light glasses that have a little bit of magnifying in them. It's definitely hard to squint and see the little writing over there.
You want to read the question?
Okay, gold and silver have been going up, and today they're heading down. When will they start going up consistently? Not sure if I spoke with you, Dawn, and I've definitely spoke with other people over the last month or so, especially about silver, and saw it going down into the middle of June and then climbing back up. I think I was getting mid-July or something. So the dip gives us an opportunity to go out and purchase more, basically. So that's a kind of a good intel to have. Let's have a look.
Break it up for me.
Okay.
Break it up.
Wonder if we do, how do you want to do it? Like timelines of, let's do 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, gold on the top and silver underneath.
Sure. Yeah. Cool.
Okay. Need to shuffle a little more too.
Just sparkle on it.
Okay. So let's see here. So gold on the top, gold in, I'm going to go gold and silver in 1 month, gold, silver in a month, And this is about going up or down. Gold in 2 months. Ooh,
yeah.
Gold in 2 months. The sun. Silver in 2 months, going back up, and gold in 3 months. Something's happening. And silver in 3 months. Okay. So gold looks like it's just kind of holding its own. Holding its own in the next month, kind of stabilizing.
About June.
And within a month, so I'm getting it, silver's going down. A lot of us are going to purchase, and then it does feel like it's going to go up by the end of the month, meaning like kind of late June, early July. Gold looks like it rises in July, the month of July, and silver is also back on the rise in July. So, yeah, like gradually climbing. 6 of Wands is like gradual, slow, but steady victory.
Mm-hmm.
Something happens to gold in August. So something might go a little awry in August with gold, but silver stabilizes in August. So there we go. That's what we're getting right now. Are you seeing anything new?
Yeah, no, I think that's, I mean, definitely, obviously, this is really, it looks to me like July is your month for.
Yes, July is a, I want to say a seller's market.
A seller's market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it looks like it's going higher. But we aren't seeing the consistent stabilizing rise. With gold, it looks like it hits maybe a high and then something happens in August. So, but silver generally is going to start rising again in about a month and then continue to rise and then stabilize in August. So.
And I mean, silver, as always, is one of those ones that's good for trading, as Mom said. So it's like, this looks like a, kind of leveling out, but keeping it as your tradable goods.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So it might be a good time to sell some gold in August or in July.
Yeah. Okay.
Rock and rolling.
So let's go to what was our next question?
Maybe there's some down here.
Mm-hmm.
Maria, welcome.
Yeah. Hi, Maria. Speaking about using your generator. They're already having some power outages in Texas, Emily.
Mm-hmm. It was fun actually waiting on the power to be connected. Yeah, mindset's totally key.
Mm-hmm. Propane and solar generators agree. There's a transition period. Looking forward to it. Okay, let's look at this. I want to speak to this. Shannon T says our 21-year-old has autism. I am really not looking forward to the power going out. It went out for 15 minutes today. Lots of tears from her. But looking forward to cheaper power. That is powerful. And let's look at how to support people who are vulnerable to, there's a lot of people.
Outages.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who are going to need a lot of support as this goes on.
Yes.
So here, you want to shuffle on that too,
yes.
Kristal? I mean, I don't want to just make these sweeping statements like this is good for us to go through struggle. It's not good for everybody. And I recognize that. And, I like what Maria's saying, propane and solar generators and a transition period. So I'm wondering, Shannon, just a thought, but you may want to consider having something as a backup. And also, I have worked with people with autism, also with elders who had needs of, oxygen and other things that they were dependent on. And just like anything else, what I've noticed is that when you start to set up alternatives and kind of like running fire drills, like when you get them accustomed to this is something that we're going to embrace and not just rail against, it does help to stabilize it, and it can almost in a way be an adventure of, okay, now we get to use plan B and make the transition and the change. I know with people with autism, it's the change. and something unexpected that disrupts their routine is very, very devastating and challenging. So you want to see what the cards say about that, Kristal?
Should we just pull like 3?
Yeah, sure. That sounds good. Wow. Yeah. What are you getting with that?
I think it's really about the way that you hold space and offer like the comforts of the comforts of the security in the home space, and then the way that you communicate about it, even in the way that it's like really that it's okay to have big emotions about it.
Yeah.
Like holding space for the grief that comes up, holding space for the anxiety that happens. And if you are prepared in knowing that this is going to be coming and setting your space up so that you can self-regulate and so that you feel like you can hold space and communicate in a different way about it, and that there is going to have to be space for all of us to go through grief around it. And then particularly, these beings that come in with autism are so special in the way that they process their emotions and the way that they show us, they're such a light that shines on how sensitive we really are and really can be as beings. And so it's like really embracing their process, and I really honor and support you in choosing each other in this lifetime to have that experience with. And we're all going to need to be holding space for the hardships that are coming. Yeah, and for each other's processes in it. So, Shannon, thank you for sharing that with us, and we really send compassion to you and your daughter and her tears. And definitely, we're all looking forward to cheaper power and free and a freestyle world that is completely different and holds, and where we come together and actually where you might not feel as alone in caring for your daughter through all of this, where we all have space for these beings and their sensitivities.
Definitely.
It's essential that we're learning. They're actually giving us the tools to come at this in a compassionate, caring, like powerfully grounded and set up way. Yeah.
And there's going to be vulnerable people. Kristal and I are really motivated to work with homeless populations in the area where we live, and also to be on boards looking at creating new paradigm solutions to different types of challenges, including, I think there's a lot of elderly people that are living, in a very vulnerable way. And if the power goes out for them, it's literally life and death. So I'm not downplaying the seriousness of that. And I feel like this is a call to arms. And if each one of us that has the means and a little bit of personal autonomy and freedom to make a choice, like going and getting a generator, or, working with like a seniors housing committee and looking at supporting, doing some fundraising to get alternative systems set up for people. I know you can say, well, why should we go through this when free energy is available? Why do we have to do this? Think about it. Think about what happens when we start to work on supporting vulnerable people in our community. Like it's the classic, I want to say, almost like, one of the things I admire about Christianity is that ethic of supporting the vulnerable and people who are, in need. And it's a type of human charity and generosity of spirit that is part of what's going to make this planet heal. It's part of what's going to heal the sickness and the greed on this planet. And you can say, well, I'm not sick and greedy. Why should I put myself out to help these people? Why doesn't the government that's sick and greedy come in and do it? And again, this is like, it's sort of like comparing frequencies. If you're saying, why doesn't this lower frequency rise up here and do what the higher frequency can do, and yet you are up here. So we have almost, it's not an obligation, it's actually an honorable opportunity to share. And as we get into the spirit of sharing, reciprocity, contributionism, caring for our neighbors, you don't have to go overboard and just become a martyr to that. But if everybody took one little situation and added something to it, we would see a big difference in this world. So
contributionism.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So Maria has been, and I think we'll take, this might be our last question here, but Maria is asking some great questions. Reading on the chemtrails, many sick recently after 2 days over Memorial Weekend. Is that related? And a secondary question about weather up and down temperatures. Is that to make us a bit more sensitive to stuff they're putting? Okay, so let's just look back at this chemtrail question. And I have to say, I'm pretty gracious about a lot of topics, but this is one that just really, I still get triggered, don't I, Kristal?
Yeah, me too.
I still,
Absolutely.
I have had this chemtrail sensitivity. I was, I feel almost like I'm going to cry. I was in the first wave of people that really started caring about chemtrails in the 90s. And I don't know what it is with me karmically, but I just have such a thing about them. They make me feel so distressed. And, I'm getting a lot better, but it is to the point where I would feel them. I'd be in the house and I'd be like, something's wrong. I can feel something. Oh no, something's wrong. And then more and more often we'd go to the window and I'd be like, there they are. I could feel them coming down. Almost before you could see them. I could feel them just as the plane was coming. So, I really love looking at this question with all of you as our witness so that we can see, I've heard different versions of, there's no longer bad stuff in these cloud, they're not cloud seeding, they are cloud seeding. There isn't toxin in the clouds. It's beneficial stuff they're spraying. It isn't beneficial. Regardless, I just don't want stuff sprayed in the air. Beneficial or not, I'm like, stop it.
Yeah. Find another way.
Yeah. So,
they make me angry seeing them.
Yeah. Thank you, Maria.
Positive. We all do, right? Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm laughing because, right? Leave Mother Nature alone. Regardless of if it's positive or negative, I just don't want stuff sprayed in the sky or put on the ground that is not something that I, if it's in my region, I want to be part of a committee that decides about that. I don't want it just done, right? To me, it's that kind of, intrusion into the lands that I am witnessing, right? I'm there being part of making choices about what happens and the lands and the territories that I live in. And if I don't have any choice in what's going on, whether it's good for me or not, it just doesn't feel very good. So here's us being
fooled.
Fooled. We're making jokes. I'm sorry, it's not that funny, but I guess we're still, when I see this card, there's something about we still aren't meant to know the whole truth yet.
Yeah.
So this is being sort of, it's interesting because the fool is often dragged along by, you would think, how do you get the fool to jump over the cliff? Well, you could drag the fool and pull him over the cliff, or you could tempt him with this butterfly flying ahead of him, or this, there's a beautiful flower or, a patch of strawberries just over the edge. If you just lean over a little, you're going to get it. And there's something like we're being led towards something that we need to see is what I'm getting. Like
I feel like the amount that they're doing it and the amount that people are now talking about it, because the amount that they're doing it is insane. It's like, I get to the point where I'm like, I can't imagine people not needing to have conversations about this coming up. Like, it's now just like we're all needing to talk about it because it's unmistakable that it's happening, and it's different than it ever was before. The skies are so much different, and so I'm having so many conversations with people my age that are, they're not awake, they don't care about that kind of stuff, but they're like, what is this whole chemtrail thing is like, I'm noticing like people are talking about it, and then I've been watching and the skies go cloudy after. What is that about? So they're starting to ask questions. So there's something where it's like, again, they're kind of gonna shoot themselves in the foot with all of it, I feel like. And
it's also interesting. I'm getting, there's something geographical. Like, look at this. We've got about half the globe does not have chemtrails sprayed over it. And there's a lot of countries that do not allow this, that it isn't part of the agenda happening there. So I feel like this is going to drive people to actually go looking for places that don't have it. And that is going to be like, it's going to be something about,
I think, also discovering why they don't have it and figuring out how they've managed to keep themselves in that place. And so there is places, I know that there's places in Texas where they've actually banned them from being in the sky. So people are fighting back, people are talking about it, and there is new energy. There is new energy that's being put into this now, because it is actually getting so extreme that people are really waking up and talking about it. And like Mom was saying, there's not countries that don't do it. When we spent 2 weeks in Yalapa in Mexico last spring, we didn't see one. And I spent a week in Puerto Vallarta, I didn't see one there. So I find that very interesting. Like, there's not a day that goes by that I don't see, right? In where we are in British Columbia, there's not a day that goes by that we don't see them.
Yeah, Lisa's saying we're in Texas. We'll have to get back to you on that. I saw something about that as well. Yeah. There's some kind of legislation around not allowing. So we'll get back to you on that. I watched someone, what's the name of that guy that I watched? The geoengineering watch guy, Dane Stevens, I think, or something like that. Anyway, I'll see if I can get some information on that for our next live and share that with you. But yeah, right. So in terms of the illness, let's talk about that for a minute, because I do feel, and would you pull maybe a couple of slide cards on that, Kristal? I do feel like I've been getting the feeling that on the larger scale, we are adapting to some of the chemical overload, and unfortunately, we're not all going to adapt the same. Some people's bodies will store toxin in certain ways, and it will create illness down the road. Other people have a system that can process it a lot better and remove it from the body. I think it's also going to create at some point certain types of genetic mutations, and some of those may be upgrades that are designed to help us. So I don't think it's entirely a black and white thing. I do feel like we're getting more resilient to this. We are building, in a way, our immunity to some of these chemical compounds. And I don't know, like maybe that's going to serve us in the transition period as we go through a lot of change on this planet. There's still going to be like, oh my gosh, talk about toxic dumping. It's been going on for like a couple of centuries. And so there's still, uranium from old mines like 200 years ago that are leaking into waterways. Like we're going to be dealing with the toxin of our unconscious actions on this planet for quite a while. So it does feel like on some level we're being kind of, I want to say, adopted.
What if I say, yeah.
Yeah.
Freedom. Dan Wigington, thank you, Freedom, for putting that up there. That's the geoengineering weather fellow. Fascinating stuff. Mom, I pulled a few cards on that.
Yeah.
About the sickness and the health.
Yeah. Getting with that.
Well, I mean, I just get that it's not what we think that it is. It's not. There's something that's it's something that's a new, I don't know, Page of Wands. It's something that we're taking a new journey here. It's that we're in uncharted territory. We're talking about it in an entirely new way. There's going to be whole new there's going to be whole new, I think, systems that are going to be born from it, and entirely new ways of communicating about it. Show me, Mama.
Yeah, and also healing modalities that clear the effects. We're seeing so many new technologies, physical technologies like different, machines that are able to remove heavy metals and the glyphosates from the body. And then there are other, frequency, energy technologies that are upgrading us. Yeah. And, it's almost like I say this to people sometimes about illness. A lot of times people will say, oh, why am I suffering from this challenge and that challenge and that challenge? And then I say, well, what I'm being shown in the timeline with their soul is that their soul has these plans for them, like say 5 to 10 years down the road. And in order for them to evolve and move into that frequency and go that direction, they have to upgrade a lot of their physical, energy, psychological, emotional selves. And they're not going to do that if they're feeling good, right? You're not going to just be like, you're going along, life's coasting along, you're feeling great. You're not going to like push yourself to upgrade. We push ourselves to up level when we're going through. We just had this conversation about your injury this morning, it pushes us to change things about our life, which changes our future timeline.
I think I also wanted to mention that I know that I watched a Curtis Stone live once where he was talking about chemtrails, and he has developed like a natural formula that he sprays on his land into the skies that cloaks and that stops it from basically coming onto your stuff. Not a very educated explanation of it, but Curtis Stone, I know, has done a lot of speaking to that. So he's another really good one to check out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we can put a link to his information below. He's a fellow Canadian, Western Canadian, awake, and does regenerative agriculture, all kinds of really cool new paradigm stuff. And definitely someone worth following. So I think we're wrapping up today's chat here, folks. It's been lovely to share with you. Really great topics, and we're going to do our very best. I think we're missing one live in July, but we're going to do our best to continue through the summer without too much disruption. And I will put up a note if we're not able to make a live. I think Anita is coming on a couple of times in the month of June, and then maybe even in July we'll get a roundtable with the three of us going. So it's been such a pleasure to share with all of you. Again, as I mentioned before, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel right here. And if you want to book a reading with Kristal, you use this coupon code Kristal25. You'll get a 25% off any reading that you purchase before the end of June, and you can schedule it anytime in the future. Have a beautiful week,
folks. Thank you so much, everyone.
We'll see you here next time. Bye for now.